So for July 2022, we are spotlighting one of CCR's award-winning members, Bill Whitworth.
I'm a native Richmonder, graduated from University of Richmond in 1968, became a licensed private investigator because there was a lot of need for photographing individuals who'd been injured in accidents, and we printed, and we even printed in color. They don't have all of that anymore. Taking a lot of pictures, getting paid for it. So I went back to University of Richmond, got a master's degree in history. So we got together and got married, and we had 2 children. Both of them happened to be Labrador retrievers. Lee and I both have spent hours and hours with Doug, and he's been very generous. He's a real encyclopedia of knowledge. I think everybody evolve over time. And it has a lot of color that I'm interested in. It went to the international level.
Yeah, that tells quite the story.
Welcome, everybody. I think we got all the welcomes out of the way with everybody. Just wanted to make a few announcements. We have our banquet scheduled for December 7th, and that'll be probably a live only. I'm not sure if we're considering Zoom for that or not, but probably likely to be a live only. We'll talk about that at the board meeting. The board is still looking at projectors. This projector is getting kind of old, so it's an issue we're still looking at. If we can get this one to work right, we'll stick with it. They do cost a lot of money, $3,000-4,000, so we'll have to look into that over the year. August next month will just be a general evaluation, and it'll be open, so you can submit anything you want, 2 pictures. As far as the notice the drone thing, those of you that are recreational drone flyers, it is illegal to fly a drone after sunset, so be careful if you fly at night. You can get a special license to fly at night, but if you're just a recreational flyer, you get the little thing from FAA. You're only allowed to fly up until sunset, so just be careful if you're out there because you could possibly get arrested for it. Yeah, well, I've done it too, so other than that. Speaking of photography, has everybody seen the new photographs from the Webb telescope? They're pretty amazing. It's got the camera in it's like 130 megapixel compared to the Hubble, which was only about 20 megapixel. They're just absolutely amazing pictures if you get online and see them. So, but with that, I'm not going to stand up here and babble all night. Let John come up here and do his presentation on black and white. John, are you out there?
I need to throw in a few caveats before I start. The big one, of course, is that I'm colorblind. So a lot of what I say here will be tempered with the fact that I don't like colors as much as I like black and white to start with. And I'm not totally colorblind. I just have a problem with greens and reds, and I can't tell the difference between orange and yellow and gold. So that's kind of quirky. But the other thing I wanted to say, 2 more things. One is a hello to Margaret. Are you still out there? I don't know if she's muted or not, but I've worked with Margaret on the travel photography newsletter for several years, and I'm telling you, she is okay.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, John. I am here.
Okay, good.
I finally got connected right.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to say is that a lot of what I'm going to tell you tonight is opinion, and opinion is just, I don't know. It's. I was in a museum in the Faroe Islands recently, and when I walked in the door, it was an art museum, and there wasn't a single thing in there that fit my taste. So, but this is good stuff, apparently. So the same thing applies to a lot of what I'm going to talk about tonight. If I tell you something that I really appreciate this in black and white over color, you might have a whole different opinion, and that's okay. So let's get started. This is a historical structure close to where I live in North Georgia. And I like this photo because for a lot of reasons. Number one, I like the vanishing point, the leading lines, and I like the shadows from the fence. But it isn't until I convert it to black and white that I really like the structural, compositional elements of this photograph. So, and I'll do this a lot. I'll go back and forth from color to black and white. This is an old factory in Albania. And the problem with this photograph is it's just incredibly busy, and you can't really tell what's going on. But it is a factory, there was a factory, and there's a lot of growth here. But when I converted it to black and white, here's what I did. To black and white, and then I took the green and the yellow sliders on my processor, which happened to be Lightroom, and I ran them all the way up so that basically it overexposed the green. So while this is busy, this there's a lot more information here, in my opinion. You can actually see the structure of the old factory. This is kind of personal to me because while I was there with my wife, these two guys rolled up in a pickup truck and they had guns, and they got out and they told us that we needed to leave. So we left right away. This is a photo of a plant nursery near my house that several years ago went out of business. But if you know the guy that is the caretaker, he'll let you in, which he did for me. And I like this picture because of it's got a lot of mystery to it. But it isn't until I convert it to black and white that these shadows down here become elements nearly as important as the structural steel that's here and the leading lines of the paved walkway. And in the same building, this is a portion of the old nursery that has been let go to weather. And while this is a kind of an interesting photo, I mean, as a viewer, you're working on figuring out just what's going on here. And I like it. I like the contrast in the whites and the color of the growth. But in black and white, it then becomes an abstract instead of a view inside a building. And you'll find that's true in a lot of conversions to black and white. Things that appeared one way in color can just jump ship and appear altogether different in black and white. Here's a bridge. This is in Portugal. Just Portugal is on Lisbon is on the river, and this is the main bridge that crosses that river. I made the photograph because I was just taken with the way the lines come out of the lower corner and disappear in the upper left-hand corner. And then there's this sweeping curve here. Together, they tell me a lot, but I'm distracted with the blue. Blue is one of the colors I see, but in this case, it's distracting to me. I'm a whole lot more interested in the composition, and the composition jumps out to me a lot more in black and white than it is in color. This is Mesa Verde in Colorado. One of the absolutely outstanding sights that I have ever seen. It's just magnificent. And you might not know it, but to make this photo, I had to, well, I'll back up. You can't just walk down here and then roam around in the structures. Obviously, they control it pretty well. So you have to go in a group, and the group is maybe 15 people. The group ahead of the one that I was in was just lurking around here, walking around, not doing much of anything. And I asked my guide, the guide of my group, could we just wait right here until that group leaves? Because I just don't want a bunch of tourists in my shot of Mesa Verde. So he did, and he also, while we were standing there waiting, he pointed out that this is just the surface of Mesa Verde. There's a cave back here, and there are actually hundreds of rooms back in the mountain, which I found fascinating. I asked him if I could come back later and pay him to give me a guided tour back there, and he said no, he appreciated his job a whole lot more than that. So, but why black and white? Black and white here is, to me, this black and white and the texture that it reveals just makes a graphic presentation of Mesa Verde that although I appreciate this, I like it. I like the warm colors of it, the way the shadows are, but it isn't until I get it to black and white that I really appreciate the textures of these ancient walls. This is another Indian site out in New Mexico. This is called Chaco Canyon, and the structures here are actually, this is Pueblo Bonita, and these structures predate Columbus by about 400 years. This is an outstanding place that very, very few people visit. One of the side issues here is that Pueblo Bonita, these structures are situated on a very, very rich oil reserves. And the state of New Mexico and the federal government's gotten involved trying to keep the oil exploration out of this area. And so far they've been successful. If you want to go here, and I recommend you do if you're in New Mexico, you're in for a long, hard drive. There's 20 miles of horrible road to get here, but it is great. Now, when I convert this to black and white, I want you to look at the clouds and see what happens. I tried black and white because I didn't like the color down here in this foreground. But anytime that you've got white clouds on top of something darker and you convert it to black and white, they really, really pop. So that's, and you're going to see that again in another slide. This slide is a castle in Albania, and I just was taken with the textures, and I really like the fact that as you're standing where I am making the photograph, you can see the light coming in from the left-hand side, and because it's coming horizontally, it makes these holes darken because it forms a shadow area. Black and white emphasizes this even darker, and I don't know how to make it larger while I'm doing this because I probably will lose my place. But the textures of these walls with the light coming from the left is exaggerated by the fact that between every stone and its neighbor is a shadow. So it makes it a whole lot more graphic. Now, this is nice, it's warm, but it just, to me, it doesn't convey the shadow. Watch what happens in this area here, black and white. See, it gets darker. And the same thing is happening between every two stones the whole way through. Here's a photo that I made out in Arches National Park. I'm not real pleased with this photo because it's very, very busy. But in this photo, to me, this color in this area and the blue in the sky get in the way of the texture, the way of the stone formations. I convert it to black and white. Now I'm seeing, I'm just really impressed with the structures of all these stones. Here's if you've been out in Washington State, you're at the entrance to the Olympic Peninsula. This is a little town out here named Port Angeles. I got there late in the day and wandered around down by the shore and came across this shipyard, which fortunately left their gate unlocked. So I was able to get in and wander around. And this boat attracted me because, number one, it's a derelict almost. And the name, of course, carries carries that thought. But when I convert it to black and white, I'm able to see a lot more of the detail of the texture of the boat. Not the least of which is the fact that the name Last Chance jumps out and becomes a very, very important ingredient in the whole image. This is an interesting place. It's called and it's a state park. And let me get my notes here, so I want to get this right. It's a state park in Utah, and the name of it is rather long. It's Coral Pink Sands Dunes State Park. This picture was made late in the day, and it's the only time of day when the sand is this color, which I'm told is coral pink. And the reason that the sand is this color is because the park is situated so that it's a desert area that has been formed over the eons by a prevailing wind that comes through this gap in what's called a Navajo limestone. And over the millions and millions of years, it has eroded those limestone cliffs and deposited the sand here. I like the photo, but I'm into patterns, and it isn't until I convert it to black and white that now I'm seeing this pattern a whole lot more significantly. In addition, the shadows formed by the little rivulets here. Nobody else in my knowledge agrees with what I just told you, but I don't care. It's my photo, and I appreciate it in black and white. Here is this is in Salt Lake City, and at the PSA conference, which must have been maybe in 2000 or 2020 or maybe 19. At any rate, the conference was held in Salt Lake City, and one of the things that the arrangers of the conference did was to get permission for photographers to go into the State House. This is the Capitol building of Utah, and within that building, it's just a miraculous place to start with. We had it to ourselves. We were allowed to, as soon as the sun came up, we were allowed to go in. And the purpose that I made this photo was the curves. There's throughout this whole image, there are no straight lines. It's all curves. It's all circles for the lights and the light fixture itself. Curve of the windows and the dome. This is the inside of the dome. I knew when I was taking the picture that I was going to convert it to black and white, and then put a border around it, which muted all these details, but kept the circles, kept the lines. And so in my opinion, the photograph is a lot more meaningful from a compositional point of view in black and white. Here's a spot. This is on the coast of Washington State. And this place is called Beach Number 2. And for those of you who have traveled out in that area, and why wouldn't you? I mean, it's magnificent. There is a beach number 1 and a beach number 3, but the beach number 2 is accessible only by a walk through the woods of about a mile. And when I got out here, I mean, I was cold. It had just rained, windy. It was just a bitter, bitter day. I found this driftwood and knew I wanted to get it in the photograph. So I used part of the structure of the driftwood to frame this little island, and another part of the driftwood to frame this little hole in the cliffs way out in the distance. And, you know, it's a good photo. It's got a lot of texture interest in it and interest, but it doesn't pop for me. It doesn't really get dramatic until I convert it to black and white. And look what I've been able to do with the sky in black and white. And in the foreground, this driftwood now becomes very, very important to the image. And you can see the texture of the wood, the knots, the broken off limbs, the parts that have been sanded away by wind and sand over the years. I like it. I like it because of the drama that it gives to this photo. Along the same lines, this is a little bit further south. This is looking toward Cannon Beach. This part that looks like it might be a city is a city. It's the city of Cannon Beach. And I'm north of there looking southward down the coast. And it was the same blustery, cold, windy, miserable day. But I was taken by the layers of the mountains back here. I mean, there's a layer, another layer, another layer, another layer. The silhouettes of these hills against the hills in the background. And that's what attracted me to the photograph. All of those elements that I just pointed out to you, though, are exaggerated when I convert it to black and white. Now look at these layers back here. The fog laying in there on each layer makes it silhouette against the one behind it. This silhouette here and here are a lot more dramatic. The stones in the foreground jump out at you, and the sky looks really, really mean. And it was mean that day. This photograph is a very, very good example of why you ought to get out in the bad weather and make pictures. If it's raining really, really hard, stay inside because you don't want to ruin your equipment. But if you can shield your equipment from the weather and shield you, get you halfway warm yourself, get outside during mean weather, because this is just a good example of how this photo becomes this photo in bad weather. This is a photo made I was driving in Western Canada somewhere, and there's a little pull off in the roadway, and looking down into this valley, these clouds are just rolling around down there, and I knew that clouds against darkness would jump out when I convert it to black and white. So very few pictures do I make thinking to myself, boy, I'm going to turn this to black and white and it's really going to jump. But this was one of those. And when I converted it to black and white, all those clouds became very, very dramatic. And you might not like this scene because it's almost harsh looking. It's really mean. This looks like blades sitting down there, all these silhouettes of these trees. But it's really, it really was a rather pleasant view, which became something altogether different when I converted to black and white. You never know, really. And it's a good idea if you're using Lightroom or Photoshop, click on the black and white button just as a preview and see what it'll do for you. I use Silver Effects Pro to work on my black and whites, and I export from Lightroom to that program, and then after I've finished processing, I bring it back into Lightroom. There's a story behind this. This is a little village in Germany. I'm sorry, in France. And it's called Oradour-sur-Glane, which means Oradour on the Glane River. This little town was sitting here minding its own business when the troops landed in Normandy. And 3 or 4 days after Normandy, a German group, and I'm going to read this to you because I don't want to miss it. Here's what happened to this little French town. The buildings in this photo are all that is left of the little French town of Oradour-sur-Glane. On June 10th, 1944, a German Panzer battalion led by Adolf Deichmann sealed off the commune, rounded up the citizens, and murdered all but several who managed to escape. In all, 196 men, 247 women, and 205 children were shot dead or herded into the town's ancient church and burned alive. This is the church right back here. It's this very, very emotional place. The French government has preserved it as a just as a statement of how horrible the Second World War was in European countries. This tree, apparently, it's a lot younger than 60 or so years. It took root right there in the middle of the roadway and grew up, and it's almost symbolic. And I wanted to use that tree to help make my statement. So what I did was I converted it to black and white, and then I overexposed the green and I overexposed the yellow, which turned all these leaves to white. And this is the result. And to me, it's almost this photo is almost spiritual. I really, really like it, and I haven't been there and heard the story. It's very, very meaningful to me, and it's more meaningful this way even than it was in this way. If you ever get a chance, this little town is right in the middle of France, and you got to want to go there because it's the only reason you would go there. There's no more tourist attractions anywhere close by. Remember the ultra marathon that Forrest Gump ran? He ran 15,000 miles, and when he got to this point, he stopped. This is in Monument Valley. He stopped here, and if you paid attention to the movie, he said, "I'm tired. I think I'll go home." This was the point in the movie where he did that, and it also goes by the name of Milepost 13. Right over here, just outside of the photograph, is a little milepost, and it's got 13 written on it. And people from all over the world come to this spot just to make this photograph. While I was there, 2 bus loads of Oriental folks pulled off over here on the side, got out, click, 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 made their photos, and then jumped back on a bus and left. And I stood here making sure there's no traffic going to run up my spine, and made 12 photos across the panoramic deal, and then put them all together, and then converted it to black and white. Truth be known, I like the color version a whole lot better. This is black and white. And to me, this area out here just looks almost dirty, whereas it's got a little more pizzazz to it in the color. So there you go.
Welcome to Zoom. Enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Oh yeah. Next photo. This taken is on Lake Louise in Bath Park. A few years back, we had a guest speaker at our club, and the guy is a really, really good landscape photographer. And one of the things that hangs with me was he told our group, he said, when you make a landscape photograph, you want to give your viewer a place to stand. And if you do that, you're inviting the viewer into the photograph a little bit. And it was with that in mind that I converted this photograph to black and white. Now, there is down here, there is a place for the viewer to stand. So that satisfies that particular ingredient, but it doesn't, it's almost muted until I can get to convert it to black and white. Now this takes on a little more importance. Plus I like the contrast back here in the snow-covered mountains and the leading lines in the reflection and in the mountains themselves. Your eye is drawn here, but you're more comfortable viewing it with a place to stand. If you don't believe me, cover this part of the photograph with your hand, and you'll see that it's not nearly as inviting as it is with the stones in the foreground. There's I threw this photograph in here because it carries a point that I couldn't make otherwise, except possibly the Mesa Verde picture. This is a little stream on a mountain trail where I run occasionally. I stopped here, made this photograph, and when I got home, I converted it to black and white because although this green foliage here is important to the picture, it doesn't take on a texture that I was looking for until I go to black and white. Now you're seeing this as almost a fabric that's a lot more important to the photograph. Plus the stream is doesn't look as muddy as it was that day. This is it a dahlia? I think is what it is. And I really like it. I like the colors jump out at me. I like, for somebody who can't see colors very well, I think this is gorgeous. And I like the photo in color. In black and white, something else jumps out though, and you need to look for it. When I convert it to black and white, now you're seeing gradations of white to black that didn't impress you in color. Color, I mean, the color covers up the wonderful gradations of the almost black elements and the white elements in the picture. And if our wonderful friend who invented the grayscale and the 10 layers would love this, because all 10 layers are in this photo. Next photo is also a flower. This is and I had to ask Mr. Google this. This is it's a calla lily to start with, but the spider, he or she, is a Mezumina clubfoot, and this spider does not spin a web. What he does is he assumes the color of wherever he is. If he were on this stamen here, he would have assumed that color. But since he was out here, he became the same color as that. And what he does, he just hangs around and waits for somebody to stumble into his territory, and then he gets them. And I wanted to show that a little more dramatically, so I converted to black and white, and this color goes away. Now the spider is more significant in the picture, and because of his silhouette here, you're able to see his legs and his "I'm gonna get you" equipment right here. I didn't, this photo of this bird, and this was taken somewhere in Florida. I saw him standing out there in the shallow water, made the photo, and it wasn't until probably a year or two later, when I was putting together a presentation, it occurred to me that the bird has assumed the color of the water. And like I say, I'm not real good on colors, but it seems to me that this part of the bird is not a whole lot different color than this. When I convert it to black and white, now what's important is the shape, the beautiful natural shape of his neck. And to me, that wasn't there in this, because the color of the water put a mask of sorts, or a filter of sorts, on the bird's feather. So that's why I like it more in black and white. Here's a picture made in Cannon Beach, and my wife saw this photo and she said, "Don't screw it up by converting it to black and white." So I naturally converted it to black and white. What's going on here is this man was walking down the beach, and I could see him from way off to the left, and I must have made a dozen photographs of him. I chose this one because there are three elements in the picture which help visually, plus which it was the only one that the dog's leg and the man's leg were in the same position. So converting it to black and white, the silhouettes become more important. And I have to admit, I like the colors a whole lot better than I like this picture right here. But I throw it in just to show you how a silhouette can become important when the color is gone. This is a fisherman in I don't know where, somewhere in Europe. Why black and white with people's faces? Well, this particular photo, I didn't like the color up here. It was distracting to me, and I didn't like the color of his shirt. Oh, it's nice, but in black and white, those things go away, and his face now, his rugged, the whiskers here, and all the wrinkle lines around his eyes and his forehead become more and more important. There's another photo I made. This is a Navajo Indian. This guy, I need to tell you his story. He was one of the leaders of the Navajo Nation, and I don't remember the name of his title, but it was sort of equivalent to our senators. And he was for many years held that position. And he, possibly because of his connections with the government, owns one of the only B&Bs in the whole Navajo reservation. And I just happened to stumble across it and stayed there 2 or 3 days. And he took me to, you can't see it in the background, but in the background are petroglyphs that his family's, this is on his family's property. And he grew up here with these petroglyphs. His wife said, Thomas is his name, "Thomas, take Mr. Martin to your family's petroglyphs." And he groaned, but he did. And we got out there in his old rattletrap pickup truck, and he said, "Mr. Martin, if you tell anybody where this is, I'll have to scalp you," which I thought was a very big way of saying, "Don't tell anybody, please, where I took you here." But why color on him? You gotta like his face. You gotta like the sunburn color of his cheeks. And I do. I like it, but also I like the in the black and white. This then becomes a whole lot more important to the whole photograph, whereas before your eyes are pulled down to Chicago. This is a little lady in Bulgaria. We were walking in this little village, and she was standing out in her front yard talking to another woman, and we went by. We said hello, and she motioned hello in I guess Bulgarian. We couldn't understand a word, but we got to just talking the best we could with sign language, and she said she motioned for us to follow her. So we went around behind the house, and it turned out that she and her husband have this little farm, and they she showed us around. Then she took us in her house and gave us tea. Now, how often is that going to happen? But at any rate, I made a photograph or two of her and her husband, and I think the lines on her face are just absolutely gorgeous. And but I wanted to see what would happen if I got rid of these colors, and I'm kind of pleased with the result. Now, her lines, look at the gray in her hair. It's just, I mean, she's just gorgeous, and it wouldn't have happened in color. At least I don't think it happens in color. This is a little lady in Tibet. We were in Lhasa and hired a man to drive us around out in the countryside. And it so happened that his grandmother lived a few miles outside of Tibet, outside of Lhasa. And she also invited us into tea and fed us little cookies and showed us around her little farmstead. I like this picture in color better than black and white, and that's why I'm showing the black and white one first. In color, this can back here is important to me, because that tin can represented to me in a goofy sort of way just the way she lived. Very frugal. She was just as kind as she looks right here. And I like the fact that she's growing flowers in this tin can. And so I left the tin can blue, and I like the earring as well. Street photography. This is, in my estimation, street photography is not standing out in the street and taking a picture. And I'm disappointed that street photography has degenerated into that. It's not. The street photography in the old days and the way it originated, well, you'd look at the photo and you'd grin, or you'd say, "Ah, I like that," or you something about it would catch your eye. And that's what happened here. This lady, a little bit on the chunky side, and this statue, and she's studying it, and it's her. It's her the whole way. And in the spirit of street photography, I converted it to black and white. And now what's happened is the red of her shirt has gone away, and it's become now. We're looking at patterns, and street photography is really enhanced when you can bring a comparison into one photograph, which is I've done here. This is a photo in the Vatican Museum, and if you've ever been to Rome and through the Vatican Museum, you'll know that it's the experience just will cause you to want to go home and go to bed. It's massive, and it's long, and it's tiring, and it's absolutely fantastic. At any rate, toward the end of the tour, we came into this little room that had a bench here, and my wife and I are sitting on a bench looking at this picture and thinking about how sore our feet are when this guy, and I'm sorry if he's covered up with the, let me see what I can do here. Guy.
We can see him.
Can you see the man here?
Yeah.
Okay. While we were sitting here looking at this picture, these two people came in, sat down on this bench, and I almost dropped my teeth because they assumed basically the same presence of this painting. And they sat there, and I put my wife, and she said, "Don't take their picture," which of course meant take their picture. So what I did was I widened out my lens. I had a little zoom 24-70 lens, and I widened it out, and I aimed at the picture. And then just when they were looking the other way, I slid it over here, hit the shutter release, and got both venues in the same thing. The drapes, the hands. This woman is looking to her left. This woman is looking to her right. The same thing in there, and that is so rare that you'd have the opportunity to make a photograph like that. That's real street photos. Anyhow,
It's magic. Beautiful.
in the image in black and white, it becomes a street photo. Street photography, just by definition, is almost always black and white. So, looking back here, my suggestion is to use black and white when you want to emphasize the design elements, or make the shadows, as I did here, part of the composition, capture the environment, or in the case here, the graphic presentation of the Pueblo. You want to emphasize the shape. You want to add drama to a photograph, or shoot on a bad weather day, or if you want to pull out an emotion, and I think you can do that better with black and white, or you want to show detail like I did with the lacy leaves or the shading. You want to emphasize character or create an impactful street photo, then it's all in black and white. So a few parting shots. Number one, always shoot in color. If you shoot in black and white, then you're losing lots and lots and lots of information that's captured on that image. So you always want to shoot in color, and then selectively convert to black and white. And for that same reason, always shoot raw. I use Lightroom and Silver Effects Pro. And this parting shot is black and white has its challenges. Your only tools are light, shadow, and composition. So it puts another burden on a photographer. Review your old photos. Don't, my recommendation is don't go out to shoot black and white photographs. Do your thing in color, and then review them for the possibilities of becoming black and white. And it's all opinion. I'm sure that partway through here, you said to yourself, well, that's his idea, not mine. And that, you know, my way out is to say, it's my opinion. So there you go. Margaret, we're bringing this, as you know, from the PSA and the Travel Division. And if you want to go to the Travel Division's page, it's right here. And on that page, you will find a link to Margaret Sprott's travel newsletter. And it is a magnificent publication available to everybody. Thank you, Margaret, for your help and your work in doing that. So I'm done. Oh, and by the
John,
way,
thank you for your compliment. And I just want to say, I have not been a black and white photographer. That's my husband. But looking at what you did with some of those images, I was really impressed. I've never seen such detail like in the walls of places and the wood. So I really liked it. And I wish you'd come back because I don't have you to talk to.
I used to be the associate editor, and Margaret would always, well, the two of us would, behind the scenes, talk about people, talk about the authors, talk about their work, but it was all toward making a better publication. And tell you, this lady right here has made it that. Thank you, Margaret.
You're quite welcome.
Okay, how do I get out of here?
Well, John, before you get out of there, John, a couple of people have asked if you can just click through really quickly again so they could see them in black and white quickly without, you don't have to talk or anything. I don't know if you can see the chat, but there are a couple of questions. I think you may have answered Frank's question in regard to shooting in color.
Oh, I see the chat.
There you go.
Okay, shall I go through them?
If you have time, that would be great.
Oh, French fries at McDonald's today.
Where did you see that one? I missed that chat.
Hello, everyone. Thank you. Cannot see full screen.
Oh, that's all the way from the beginning. The last ones
Yeah.
on there, the last three on there are going to be, do you ever shoot directly in black and white, which I think you answered. Would you be willing to click through so that we could see them again? And then you've got a lot of thank yous
Yeah,
coming in now.
I appreciate this comment right here because I'm a sort of a one-man preacher when it comes to street photography. I just really think it's been denigrated down to photography that's not thoughtful, I guess. Okay, you shoot in color. Have you ever set the camera directly in black and white? Yes, I have. But you lose a lot of the processing capabilities if you do that. Let me click through all the photos again. Sure. No need to explanations. Would be great to see them all again.
Yeah.
And I'll do that if I can figure out how.
John, do you ever use infrared at all? Because you seem to lean towards the infrared kind of look.
I'm sorry, infrared?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and that photo of the tree in the French village is very much like infrared because infrared it doesn't see the greens, and,
Right.
and everything is green becomes white. So it accomplishes the same thing. Yeah. Now, how do I go back to the front?
You click to exit and then you start over. So
Okay. I don't see exit. Leave.
Well, no, that would leave us. On your slide presentation, it says end of slideshow, click to exit. So where your slide presentation is, somewhere on there, you have to click to close it.
I can't get to it,
That's
unfortunately.
okay. That's okay. The good thing is we have recorded all of this, so it will all be available probably
Okay.
at the end of next week on our YouTube page. So everybody who would like to see it again could see it over and over.
Okay, well, folks, thank you very much. I hope that even if you disagree with a lot of my statements about why black and white's better in particular cases, I hope it's made you think about black and white because it's a whole different thing, a new area of photography for you possibly. Thank you very much.
John, this is Karen.
Thank you.
If you hit your stop share, you might be able to launch that again. And in the meantime, I was going to ask if there were any questions from the folks that are here in person. It looks like something is happening. Any questions from our group here in person?
Yeah, I've got a question.
All right.
You can ask. Hey, hi, quick question. Do you have a typical workflow moving from your color to black and white?
Yes, I do. What I do is and I use Lightroom because Lightroom is just so for my workflow at least. I have the big boy version, of course, which is Photoshop, but I like the Lightroom because it does everything that I want, and it has the additional capabilities of organization that is really, really important. If you, like me, if you've got 40,000 images on your computer, it's tough to find that picture of Frog or of Margaret Sprott. But if you are religious in putting keywords in, you can always just click of a button or two, you can bring up that photo. So that's why I like Lightroom. I'll look at the photo and then right click on it, and it brings a drop down that says edit in, and you clicked on that. I'm doing all this from memory right now. You click on that and it gives you a further drop down, and you want to choose on that second drop down Silver Effects Pro if that's what you're using. And then when you finish it, make sure you bring it back to Lightroom. And a lot of times it'll get lost. So you might have to look down at the end of your array of photographs and find it and then drag it back up to where it should be. But usually it brings it back to where it was.
All right, that was great. Any other questions from our in-person audience?
This is Frank. John, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, I had posed that earlier question about shooting in black and white. I didn't pose that very well. Actually, what I was alluding to is that mirrorless cameras, I think most mirrorless cameras anyway, allow you to set the LCD to black and white while capturing full color in the raw file. So you can actually compose in black and white, but capture full color raw and allow you to manipulate the raw any way you want, but would allow you to see, if you will, to pre-visualize, to use an old term, what the image might look like in black and white.
It's a guess. It's so easy to try it out though. In Lightroom, it's just one button that you click and it'll convert that image, maybe not the way you want it in your final, but it'll convert it to black and white, at least for a preview. I'm back to the slideshow now. I could probably.
And Frank, I know exactly what you're talking about. I think I shoot through the camera black and white and then turn it in. When I print it, it comes out in color when I put it on the screen. But I could see different things looking at black and white before
I do the same thing.
It's really, really cool. John, if you want to share, all you have to do is hit share screen.
All right. Come on.
You'd be surprised how much patience we've learned in the last 2 years. There you go. You're good.
I'll run through these quickly. And if you want me to stop, I'll be glad to do that.
No, please do.
John, could you click your slideshow so that we see them full screen?
Yeah, soon as I figure out how to do it, I'll have to minimize this first.
There you
The
go.
slideshow. I don't know why it has this, I don't know why it has this ribbon on the left. Can't get rid of it.
John, I may have missed this, but what's the location of that photo with the pebbles in the front?
This one right here,
Yes.
this is on Lake Louise in Banff National Park in Canada.
Yeah, that's awesome. The reflections are just incredible.
Thank you for doing that, John. You can really see your personality in there. You did a phenomenal job with those. And those of you who are on Zoom, I cannot turn your microphones on. So if you need to ask anything or want to say anything, you have to do that on your own.
Yeah, any final questions from either in person or Zoom?
John, can you hear me? John?
Yes,
I noticed that you almost never use, or at least in your presentation, never use monochrome images. What do you think about toning? What's your take on
I'm getting
this?
a large echo when you speak.
Can you repeat
Well,
that, Jared?
again, I use another microphone. What I'm saying that I noticed that you almost never in your presentation showed the pictures with toning. So it's not monochrome; it's just black and white. What's your take on monochrome pictures using the toning for the black and white, and perhaps even a dual toning?
I don't use dual tone, but I have done some photos where, and Lightroom lets you do this because they've got so many presets and filters and so forth that you can like do a sepia, for example, and it can be very, very striking. This would be good in sepia, this, I think, because it's historic and it's emotional, and it might do real well. Right.
So do you have any specific recommendation on when or in what case, if you will, to use this or that toning technique or color?
No, sir, I don't. It's pretty much up to the viewer or the photographer. But it's an area that I think I'll delve into now that you bring it up and see what I can do. I'm always looking for new ways of looking at photographs that I've made over the years.
Okay. One question, more questions, if I may. Using black and white allows you to basically exaggerate your tonality or contrast, you name it. So if technically, if you convert it back to the color image, you would see very strange image. But my point is goes like that. Let's say I would like to emphasize the image by turning sky to almost pitch black. It's not unnatural, I guess, but it gives some kind of expression, special expression. What's your take on this?
I like it. I like those photos of the pueblos out west. In fact, that one photo of Benito, I did that. And you can do it easily. Just take the blue slider and underexpose it until the sky gets as black as you want it to get.
Precisely.
Works very nicely, and that makes those clouds jump out even more.
So it's not it's acceptable to intentionally create something which we know, the viewer knows, that is not real to some degree, which is probably impossible to do in color picture because our eye immediately recognizes that something wrong with the, let's say, color of the sky. But when it gets into black and white, all of a sudden it becomes possible to do that without really creating this unnatural or artificial feeling.
You know, I think it's yours. You can do with it whatever you want, and it becomes your expression. And the viewer may not agree with you, and that's fine too. But I think you know, Margaret and I lived in a world where, in the travel division of PSA, there's a lot of conversation about what makes an acceptable travel photograph for competition. And the rules are not very many, but they're pretty strict. Number one, you never process to the point that it's not what you saw. You cannot include anything that was added or subtracted, very much like photojournalism. You may not photograph or may not submit for competitive purposes photographs that are setups, and your photograph has to be, if it's a person's face, for example, that some of these that I take, this photograph would not be acceptable in competition because it doesn't say anything about Albania or wherever it is. It's just there's nothing there that leads you to believe that it's in a particular place. So however, I'm a renegade. I think of travel photography as photography made by photographers who travel, whereas the definition is a lot more strict than that. And Margaret and I have, over the years, have been able to keep the photography journal or the photography newsletter free to do that. Like I could put this photograph in there, and even though it wouldn't be suitable for competition, it's fine for the newsletter.
Well, thanks to everyone, Leo, for putting together all of this and making it all happen, for the video we saw earlier. Marianne, our education director, for handling all of the Zoom for us tonight. President Harold Lana for kicking things off, and especially to John Martin for such a wonderful presentation for us tonight. So I think I'll throw it back to Harold to see if he has any parting words for us as we head out for the evening. Harold, did you want to? All right, Harold's a man of few words. He's, I think if you heard earlier, he is headed to Africa, so we should see some really good photos back from that trip. Thanks, everyone, and good night. Have a great rest of your week.
Good night, all.